Good morning, everyone, and welcome to my podcast. My name is Lynette. Today we're going to talk about mental fake news. I was recently going through this series of all these thoughts going through my mind that were negative, and I had to stop and think, why am I getting so much negative feedback in my mind? And I realized it wasn't even true. It wasn't even reality. And I know last week we talked about getting thoughts that weren't real, that caused fear. And so when these thoughts started to come to my mind, I realized they're not real. And it's difficult to combat negative thoughts that come to your mind. I realize that we're so inundated with fake news that we don't even know reality from what isn't real. And I really started to think about it, and I thought, there is no difference in getting the fake news in our head or going on TikTok or watching TV or reading something that you realize is fake news. And so I think part of the challenge is when you realize that something is fake and you know it. And just by that revelation of realizing it's mental fake news, negative thoughts are mental fake news. And when I really realize that is a real thing, that is what happens to us when we get negative messages. It is negative false news. And it really helped me to realize that I'm not going to take that fake news anymore, whether it be in something that I read or in my own head. I know therapists call it catastrophe thinking. It's when you jump to the worst scenario, the worst possible scenario within any situation. And by eliminating that fake news and realizing, you know what, I'm going to jump to the best scenario of any situation, because the truth is, when we have fear, if our mind is trying to put fear in us, it holds us back. And I heard somebody say just yesterday, it's really sad to wake up much, much older and realize you didn't do what you wanted to do because you had fear. And as we've all been told, even if you have fear, you do it anyway. And even if you don't succeed, you learned lessons. It's better than sitting there frozen. I was on TikTok, and there was this well-known anchor person, and he was talking about, called it breaking news. Breaking news, there's a new serum that takes away wrinkles. And I thought, really? David Muir, that talks about world news, wars, bombings, etc., is going to talk about this breakthrough wrinkle cream. For some reason, just common sense told me that was fake news. So we need the same common sense to tell us when our mind is giving us fake news. It's really interesting, and I was so excited when I had this revelation that it is fake news, and maybe it's a good thing that I learned the term fake news, because I gotta say, 5-10 years ago, I didn't really hear the term fake news very much, but now you hear it all the time. So you almost have to question everything you hear and read. And when I realized that at this point it was my mind giving me fake news, when I realized using common sense, it doesn't quite sit with your spirit, you got to say and think, I don't think that would be true. And turning that off in our mind, saying, I think that's fake news, and playing it over on the flip side to positive news, then there's no stopping you. Because if everything is on a positive, what's to hold you back? And we don't want to wake up older and have regrets that we didn't try this or that. When you're going to do anything, if you're going to have a positive, and you have to keep working and fighting with yourself until it starts playing the flip side, starts playing the positive 100% of the time. So every thought you have is positive. Therefore, your outcome is going to be positive. Your part, your actions, the way you move, what you do is going to be of a positive outcome. And that is so exciting to feel that way because you feel like, wow, things are endless. And when you do get that attitude, when you change your thinking, your demeanor changes. The way you carry yourself, the way you treat people is also very different. Like everything we've talked about, it takes some work. I'm not going to say it just magically happens. But as soon as I realized that there was a word for it, fake mental news, then it was easier for me to turn it off. And honestly, once I learned that I can confront it and look it straight on like it is, it's fake, it's not reality, it's not really how I feel about something or someone even, then you can start training your mind. And it doesn't take long to flip from negative to positive. It's very exciting when you approach everything, and I mean everything, with a positive attitude. Whether you're going to the store, whether you're going to an interview, whatever it is, you walk in with confidence because your mind is thinking positive things. Have you ever started talking with someone and for some reason you're having negative feelings toward that person? I don't really know why, but it just happens. But if you yourself can change your mind around to thinking positive, as I said, your interactions with everyone are more positive. This was such an important subject, and I know this probably won't faze you in the least, but there were so many examples, so many situations that happened since I realized that fake mental thinking is a real thing. I started taking notes on what I want to do, let you know some situations that have happened and a better way to approach this. However, technology being as it is, I inadvertently pressed something wrong and my notes disappeared. So I'm kind of going off the top of my head here, but I'm trying to explain it as simple as possible. And I think the bottom line is when your mind sends negative messages to you, you act on that. No matter what you're doing, no matter if it's a big deal or a small deal. I'm going to give you an example from when I was a child, and I didn't even realize this is what I was operating on. But a girlfriend and myself, we were in our garage, and we were really young, and we were throwing a ball into a bucket. And I remember saying this to her. I said, how come every time I say I'm not going to make it, I don't? And when I say I am going to make it, I do. I didn't know what in the world I was talking about. But that example came into play even then, even as a child. And I remember that. And at that point, I thought it was just something kind of magical that was happening. I didn't realize I was sending the message to my own brain. And that's why athletes envision, for example, basketball players envision the ball going in the basket. But I think the first point is realizing that you are having mental fake news. In other words, the information that your mind is feeding you is fake. And it's not always fake, so it's up to you to discern what it is. But if it doesn't align with reality, it doesn't align with you functioning correctly, if it doesn't align with you doing your best, a good job, then you can pretty much know that it is fake news or fake mental thoughts, whatever you want to call it. And when you really look at it, and when you can recognize that those are fake thoughts, that is fake news, and you flip it to the opposite, and you picture your outcome being good, your mind starts thinking good thoughts, and then your results follow suit. Believe me, it doesn't take long. I consider myself a fairly positive person, but I'm still a human being, and we all go through good and bad and negative and positive. But I've never had the revelation of looking at it as fake news. And when I put a label on it, and when I really started listening to it and realized what it was at that point I could turn it around. And I did for like 3 days. It was great. And then I got the flu, and sometimes when you're feeling well, it affects you. You're not as strong physically or mentally. And so now I'm well again, and I'm back, and I'm approaching this from a positive way. I know in the past we talked about ways to train your brain is that you write down the negative, and then below it you put the positive. But I also found that when I realized that this was fake information that I was getting, that my own mind was giving me fake information, I was able to turn it around even quicker. It was amazing. It was almost like exposing something or someone, and therefore it couldn't hide anymore because you knew the truth. And I think once you realize this truth, that, hey, this is fake, this isn't how I feel, this isn't how I do, this isn't how it's going to turn out, then it's almost like your mind realizes that you called its bluff, so to speak. So I'm going to back up and put this all together. Again, it's doing your best physically, making yourself the best you can be, eating right, exercising, females doing your nails, putting on your makeup, just being your best. You don't have to be the best, but only your best. And that makes you feel better about who you are. And that's in the physical, and the physical inside and the physical outside. But if you also get your brain, your mind in good health, then it sends messages to your body. So not only is it everything you can do, but it's the way you carry yourself. It's the knowing. And then when the successes start to happen, then you develop a real confidence. This whole package is a win-win situation. And the next step to it is a fast track in getting our minds to think positively. I know last episode was about putting a positive spin on everything, but this evolved even more so. I mean, this took it a step further. So wrap your brain around mental fake news. And when you get a thought that sends a negative emotion, whether it be fear, anxiety, whatever it is, think about it. Is it really true? First of all, is it really how you feel? And then think about, is it an outcome? Because there's two ways that an outcome can be. It can either be positive the way you want it, or it can be negative. And even if it's not exactly the outcome you wanted, you learn a lesson from it. Or there's a better option right around the corner. I know in my life, for example, when I think something is so important, I just gotta have it. And when I didn't get it, I feel almost devastated. And then sometime later you say, whoa, I dodged that bullet. So you gotta also trust. You gotta trust that whatever is meant to be for you is going to be. But when you get your mind to rid yourself of all those negative thoughts, all those fake news reports that honestly, when it comes from you, if you're not aware, you get relaxed and comfortable in your own thinking. So you take this as reality. But if you're open to realizing that not all the information that's being fed to you that you think is from you is not your reality. It's not the best thoughts for you. And once you turn that around, I think your mind operates on a much better level, and I think it's the way we're supposed to operate. I think if we are getting negative fake news, it's just what we've been surrounded with. I think you're happier when you turn your thoughts around, turn your body around, and get everything in line for success, for happiness. So when your mind, body, and spirit are in line, you have the whole package. And when I say you, it's you. You can be proud of you because you fulfill everything that you felt you were lacking. I hope you will recognize this mental fake news you're being fed, and whether it's 25% of the day, 10%, 15, 50, 75, whatever, it doesn't matter. The point is that you recognize it and that you're going to turn it around. And if you need to do that writing like I told you about, writing down the negative and then putting the positive under it, that's a way to teach your brain as well. Or if you can recognize it and stare at it head on, that it is fake news, you can call it bluff, then it's a win-win. And you will see the difference in the way you carry yourself, in your body, in your interactions with others, in your interactions with day-to-day things, whether they be big things or little things. You are becoming a whole person. All this time, regardless of what age you are, getting to where you are now, you thought certain things were the truth and you can't go any further. But now, taking this step, you realize you can go further. There's a whole lot more out there to be said, to be done by you when you realize everything from a positive point of view. God bless you, and I will talk to you next week. Have a great week. Bye-bye.